as a natural lady myself, my hair straight now, y'all. You have straight hair, and it's I know they had the bill about the natural hair discrimination. It is in California. However, we've seen so many other stories about someone needing to cut their dreads, or even that little boy that was on the wrestling team had to cut his hair. And the thing is, I shouldn't have to change my hair just to perform my job, and for me, if I do, and this is a requirement, I feel like I should get a stipend for it or something to maintain this look. If if that's the case, even though that's still unfair, but right, pay for it though. But what are your thoughts on that?
Like, my thoughts are, like, let's be real. Like, it's crazy that our hair is illegal. Like, let's let that soak in for a minute, because I think a lot of times when different marginalized voices are complaining, we don't necessarily get it. But literally, the hair that we were born with, that came out of our hair, God created with no additional things, is seen as illegal. So we need to really put that in perspective as we think about where we are in the country.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I do, and it makes people angry. I'm gonna do it here. Try something new here. But I always tell people, like, stop calling me African American. Call me Black American. And the reason for that is because I'm an American, and as an American, I have certain unalienable rights. And what happens is, because how language plays a role, if you look at how Africa is portrayed on TV, your hair is like, the safari. I've never, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm,
like
mm-hmm.
Every time we see Africa, we see it portrayed in a certain way. Just like every time we see Mexico, it has a. Have you noticed every time you see Mexico on TV, it's Mexico because it's like got this orangish, yellowish film across it?
Yes, and other things.
Yeah, Mexico don't look like that. So like it's those things. And so when we use certain words like African American, it makes like our political leaders put on, Ghanaian fabric and kneel to us, but we're Americans and we would have much rather wanted some reparations or a check because we live in a capitalistic society. So it's like when we say that we're African American, what I think it does is because there are so many blocks in people's minds, once you say African, they're all on a tangent. They're seeing lions and zebras and bears, and they're saying you're not like me. I'm an American. My mother was born here. Her mother was born here. And her mother was born here. And this country was built off the back of my ancestors. So, and I've never been to Africa. In fact, I've never been able to afford to go to Africa. So how then every time you address me with that piece. Now, are my roots in Africa? Definitely. I do not pronounce Africa. I believe in an Afrocentric lifestyle. But when I'm talking business, you need to address me as a Black American.
Right.
Because I want access to the funding. I want access to the policies. I want access to the procedures. And as an American, I am supposed to have those things. So then when you start looking at like equal protection under the law, well, if I'm an immigrant, this is not my constitution. We have to start reframing that conversation for the people in the back who don't get it. Because we all have African descent. Like Africa is the motherland and we are all connected to Africa. But because my skin is darker, you will say, well, she's more African and I have the ability to treat her differently.
That's a true story. Okay. All right. I like that. No
comments about it because we are proud of our African heritage and that's a part of who we are. But I think that is for us and not for them to hang on. So we need to reframe that conversation.
Okay. That makes sense though. I mean, your point makes sense. It's valid. It's valid points because a lot of us haven't been. I haven't traveled to there. I want to go, but I haven't. I mean, that part of my culture was lost,
Right. And when you get there, they're going to treat you like you
an American.
It's like, it's like stuck between a rock and a hard place.
Yeah.
And great to be, I think, Africa as a continent is a beautiful continent. It's a huge continent. And all the different countries and all the different flavors, the food, the culture is very, very beautiful. But Black American people set the tone and culture for the world. And we are a small, unique bunch of people. And that when we take away and when we clump ourselves in over there, then people don't understand that we create the language. We create words like swag. We create words like drip. We make the new dance craze. We say wet hair is hot, right? Because even though they say our hair is illegal, we still see them putting in fake dreads and dread in their hair, and right, because we set the tone for the culture. And so once we are in alignment with that as a people, and we start to claim our rights to the land and our rights to the Constitution and our rights to funding, and then that's where the shifts come in for me.
I think it's getting there. We're taking note. We're understanding it now more than ever. And coming in on that topic, why do you think Black Lives Matter is so political? Why is it a pressure point for some people? Yeah. I mean, it's Black Lives Matter. Like, how is that a derogatory term or phrase?
Back and say something about your last question. I want to let you know that I live in a city where we pass reparations for Black citizens, both in the county and on a city level. So that passed in they have committed to restorative justice in some form for the which is amazing, because we've been hearing about reparations all our life. 40 acres and a mule, 40 acres and a mule. So
right.
Actually become real legislation is historic. And so shout out to all of the activists here that are doing that great work. So I want to say, yes, we are changing the tides, and we're changing it systematically, and we're changing it from a governmental standpoint, from a budgetary standpoint, from a power standpoint. Why do people think that why does Black Lives Matter get people in a tizzy? Okay. So, let's first start with, I posted something today that is really important to me to say. Black Lives Matter is not a movement about the dead, right? Black Lives Matter is also about the living. And so for me, one of the things that I see is we haven't done a great job of making that be succinct. So every time we stand up and we say Black Lives Matter, is usually around a death. And that death is usually, like, first of all, when death enters a situation, there's grief, there's pain, right? So it automatically becomes harder to talk about, harder to deal with, harder to press through. And usually when we're screaming Black Lives Matter, we are also like, there's a punishment that needs to be laid out. So let's put that into context of how, you know what I mean? Like when we say Black Lives Matter, and then we say Breonna Taylor, we say somebody needs to be locked up.
Right.
So now we got the death of Breonna Taylor, which is heavy, which is a lot of sorrow. Then we got, we want to lock these officers up, and we're saying like Black Lives Matter. So I think as we begin to unpack what Black Lives Matter means, so, I posted like, it's about the living, and I was like, you need to pay accordingly. Like, we haven't connected the Black Lives Matter movement to pay equity yet in real time. We haven't aligned the Black Lives Matter movement to educational equity. We haven't aligned it with entrepreneurial equity. And so a lot of times it gets the most attention around a very sad and emotional time. Yeah. So it has that context. I think that's why I think people get in a tizzy, because even if you're racist, let's say you are a racist, and I know a lot of racists, even if you're racist, typically you wouldn't be mad at somebody saying a slogan. It's just what that means is that you want to jail, like the Black Lives Matter movement. We have offenders. It's a very intense space to be in. And it's a hard space to be in because I don't see any other nationalities having to prove their worth on that level.
Yeah, and that does bother me too. It's almost like, you have to, when you say it, or it's always a comment after that. It's always a follow up after that. So it is a bit disturbing, and sometimes I feel like, it's simple. If you wouldn't want this happening to your daughter or your son, why should it happen to anyone else's? Why are you failing to put yourself in someone else's shoes? I can't, I don't even understand how these dots don't connect in, adults' minds.
Well, I mean, again, and we see people co-opting our movement, using it in the wrong way. So Black Lives Matter is some kind of way linked to like being a Democrat, which is like, why? I'm not a Republican or a Democrat, but what I'm saying is Black Lives Matter is about being Black. And if you see what I see, then they the same.
Right.
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 You uphold racist policies and you uphold racist policies. So how is that connected, right? And so
right.
Or we see businesses that are now saying, oh, Black Lives Matter, but you ask them to see their board and their pay structure and see if Black lives really matter then. And so I think as our movement matures, I love the Black Lives Matter movement. I'm super excited about the new energy that we have around it. And I think it's going to take influencers in our different sectors to uphold the work that has been already done by the fabulous activists who started this work. And we have to carry it on. We have to say, well, what does Black Lives Matter look like in higher education, where I'm kind of in that sphere? And what does Black Lives Matter look like in the classroom in K-12? And what does Black Lives Matter look like in a corporation or in a media company? And a lot of people, when they reach out to me, they say, well, we're having a diversity issue. We can't get any people of color to sign up for our program. And then I said, well, how many people of color do you have playing in the program? And it's like they weren't ready for that level of diversity. Like, cool to benefit, but it's not cool to be on our level, right?
Right.
So we have a lot of work of unpacking and explaining and teaching. And I just hope that already is my portion of that, because this is a big movement and it's going to take all of us from all different races to and all different genders and all different abilities, and just to be able to put our 2 cents in to create something beautiful so that there's enough space for everyone here to thrive.